반갑습니다. 백이동입니다.
Very nice to meet you all. As introduced, I am Baek Dong.
금년도 이 새로운 형태의
This year's forum
개최하신 데
is
대해서
trying out a new format, and I would like to congratulate you on the successful hosting of the forum. I would also like to extend my gratitude to Director General Lee Jong-hee of NIHC and Director General of ICHCAP Kim Ki-young for making today possible. I'm an archaeologist, but I do want to mention that I have immense interest in ICH. Archaeology is all about tangible heritage. However, it's true that we do see a journey or connection between tangible and intangible cultural heritage. So I had great interest in ICH from the very beginning. And I believe that the reason why I was invited to give a keynote presentation is because of my interest in that linkage. In terms of cultural heritage, whether it be intangible or tangible, it may disappear, and there are risks that it may disappear. So that's why relevant organizations were trying to find a way to preserve and safeguard such heritage, to transmit this to the future generation, and especially for ICH. Amid social changes, it's true that it's under the threat of disappearing. So for decades, UNESCO and national governments around the world have put in great efforts to preserve such heritage. The Korean government established NIHC, or National Intangible Heritage Center, and also was endorsed to establish ICHCAP in Korea, and has been putting in great efforts to find ways to utilize as well as safeguard ICH in Asia, and it's been playing a leadership role. And in the academia, many efforts are being taken as well. At the National Folk Museum of Korea, it published a magazine titled Intangible Cultural Heritage, and I know that it was well renowned in the area of ICH, and I believe that Korea is playing a leadership role in this arena. I believe I will have to advance my slide, so let me do just that. In the digital age, ICH can be a pertinent topic. We also call the digital age the age of globalization, but what we can say is that this technological change is leading to societal change. And because of that, ICH is vastly disappearing in our societies. So technology can be a threat. However, in the area of digitalization, I believe that such technologies can play a pivotal role in preserving and safeguarding ICH. And at these international forums and seminars, we're trying to find ways to utilize ICH by tapping into such high-tech and other technological advancements. As was mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, intangible and tangible. It's basically the two faces of one single culture. However, when we see culture of the past transmitting to the present state, the usage or the utilization may vary depending on the times. So particularly when you think about tangible heritage, you can go to the site or to the museums. However, for ICH, it's everywhere. And in the digital age, we can say that it can be utilized in various fronts. So that's one key characteristic of ICH, that it's everywhere. But the meaning of ICH compared to tangible heritage is that it's closer to the original form of culture. What I mean by this is that if we look at archaeological assets, we do see, let's say, a specific plate or pottery. But if we look at ICH, as you've seen in the video, the dance, every time we see that, the meaning that's portrayed may be different depending on who sees that and how it's performed. And the practitioners and the performers may have different interpretations of their performance every time they do that. So ICH, the cultural meaning it carries, and also the advantage that comes from utilizing ICH, is greater and more significant in terms of scope and depth than tangible heritage. So then, in this age of digitalization, how can we make full use of ICH? I know that this forum in itself is a new format of utilizing digital technologies to share information and ideas. So in the digital age, how can we utilize ICH? What would be the desirable way forward? Former Director General of UNESCO, Irina Bokova, has given us some very important food for thought of how it can be used in education and also for a sustainable society, how ICH should be utilized. And I would like to go one step forward. I would like to talk about how we can find ways to utilize ICH as a future resource for the next generation. Of course, this in itself is something that we do see underway in national governments as well as in UNESCO and relevant international organizations, but I think that we also need to find the most effective and efficient and desirable way forward. There may be projects and programs in place, but in terms of the methodology, I think that we can enhance the sophistication as well as the efficiency of bettering the process. Intangible heritage has a great advantage that it has diversity and variability. So diversity, of course, we have diverse cultures, and archaeological culture is also diverse. But if you look at ICH, diversity is much more significant, it's deeper, it's way more detailed. So there is a recognized diversity that's out there. And there's also temporal diversity in ICH. During the Rome Empire or Silla dynasty, when you look at a specific asset, in many cases you see a fixed image of that asset. But if you look at ICH as it's handed down and as it's transmitted, it's probably portrayed differently depending on when you were looking at it, when it was during your younger years or whether it's right now. So you can see that the display in itself is quite diverse. And the other aspect is variability, that it always changes. It's variable. So if we look at the Kayagum Sanjo, the scores of Kayagum Sanjo, Sanjo in itself is one type of culture, but depending on the practitioner, when it's taking place, and depending on the environment, you can see that the overall performance and the feelings that are rendered are very much different. When we talk about cultural diversity, in many cases, we would think about a big cultural pattern that's in place. When you go to Greece, there's a certain culture. In China, in Korea, there are respective cultures. But if we look at, for instance, architecture, in Korea, we have the wooden building technology of Korea. In China, we have brick building technology. In Rome, we have stone masonry technology. So there are these big cultural patterns. But if you look at intangible cultural heritage, there are these detailed patterns or nuances or what I call microvariability. And such microvariability of ICH is a major asset, a major advantage, and we need to find ways to utilize this, to have this and use this as a source for future contents, for future generation. So, how can we collect and accumulate such diversity and microvariability, and how can we put this to use? This is a major theme and a major task at hand. As mentioned, we're living in the age of digital technology, and I've mentioned some of the traits and advantages of ICH that can be harnessed. But one particular advantage has to do with record keeping or documentation. Digital technology and ICH can be grafted together to raise the accessibility to the mass public. So that's one way to utilize ICH in the age of digitalization. In other words, it can be a there would be better ways to have the public access ICH by using digital technology. However, if we want to turn this into a future resource, I believe that digital technology can be used for documentation. But if we're not living in the age of digital technology, there are certain records that cannot be kept. Think of the past. When you think about recording the dance, there would be specific scores that would be collected, and that's how it would be transmitted to the next generation. But right now, what would happen is the action, the audio, the facial expressions, all of this can be collected and it can be recorded and transmitted. And I believe that this is probably the greatest advantage of the age of digital technology for ICH. As mentioned, digital technology can be used to enhance accessibility, and I'm sure that you've experienced this in many fronts. If you go down the streets, you can see presentations of ICH, and here we are utilizing Metaverse to engage in this forum. So we'll be seeing a universal use of such technology going forward. But once again, if we want to turn ICH into future resource by using digital technology, there may be more opportunities and more possibilities. For this to be possible, we need to fully understand digital technology, and we also have to put in place a framework or system to take full advantage of digital technology in converting ICH into a future resource. I believe that relevant governments, the Ministry of Cultures and the centers are engaging in many efforts to realize all this. But if we want this future resource to be made of value for humanity, if we want ICH to be taken full advantage of, we need a worldwide platform where we can gather all of these efforts together on one platform to have mankind use this. So a big data in a cloud system is necessary. So how can we create this? Well, this is a major agenda item, and I believe that this is an area that we need to put further thought into, and it's an area that needs further discussions. There is Google and many portal sites where we store information and use that information afterwards. This is a part of our everyday life. We use this information in that fashion. But what about ICH? We want to provide a similar platform for ICH. It's not just about the functional aspects of the platform. It's about utilizing this resource as a universal asset or universal heritage. We need a worldwide platform. And this is not for a certain country or for a certain individual or a group, or it's just scholars. I believe that this is probably like the air we breathe. It's a platform that is necessary to make sure that ICH can be utilized as a future resource. And I know that the officials of cultural assets, the governments, and many industry have to work together to put together a platform. But I want to say that there are many international organizations that will have to join hands to digitize all of the ICH around the world, to have it used not only for the present generations, but particularly for the future generations. We need such a system. And there are two prerequisites that have to be met in the process. First is that ICH has patterns, but there are diverse patterns. So how shall we have that embedded onto the platform to make it easier for the future generation to query and find and use? So I believe that the cultural anthropologists and digital technology experts need to come together to see what will be the most desirable data system to enable all that. And another prerequisite that I wanted to mention is in the process of digitization, there is no standardization across the board. In Korea, we are very advanced in digital technology. However, in Africa, there is a digital divide. So how shall we resolve this? In that aspect, we have UNESCO and we have relevant organizations that can play a significant role in closing the gap. We need an international standard, and we need to understand how to post this information, how to download this information, and how to use this information. So international discussions would be necessary to do that. And another way would be to also understand how to tap into the resources of advanced nations. to build this platform and to have ICH on this platform to make this into a universal future resource. It's also about having underdeveloped nations to be a part of this journey and to record their ICH. And we will have to take a phased approach. This cannot be done overnight. We would need the assistance of UNESCO and relevant organizations to have all of the countries on board. So once again, ICH can play a pivotal role in the future as future resource. And in some sense, it may seem like a very vague and abstract picture right now, but if we think of the climate crisis, and if we look at the many changes in society that we're witnessing right now, in order to resolve these challenges, the solution lies in culture. And in order to find the right solution, it's about tapping into our past culture and to use that as a source to lead to more creative results and to find these solutions. So once again, it comes from past experience, our culture of the past, and use that as a source to create new solutions. And I believe that this platform can play the role as a bank of ICH. And in the new era of Anthropocene, we can say that in some sense it has its advantages, but the Anthropocene also has to do with dealing with the many problems man-made. So in order to solve all that, as mentioned, what we have to do is to find a way to put in place a platform that has great depth and scope and utilize this as a bank to drive solutions for future challenges. So yes, it's true that my talk was quite comprehensive, so I don't know when this all will be realized, but I know that many organizations are trying to grapple with the situation and trying to find a solution. So I hope that we can increase the pace so that before our ICH disappears, it would be great to have a strong platform in place to prepare for the future and also to make sure that it benefits mankind. And I think that it's an ethical obligation on the present generation to do just that. So once again, Director General Lee Jong-mi and Kim Ki-young, thank you for offering this opportunity, and I hope this international forum will continue on in the future and play a pivotal role for future generations. Thank you very much.